Hello, everyone. You are here. Well, before I tell you where you are, I should tell you that I am Dr. Dream, and you are here for another exciting episode of the DMT Chronicles, part of a series that I do under my several umbrellas. It's under a couple of umbrellas, but one of them is Psychedelics as Medicine, and it's all under the It's All Good show. So happy that you've joined us today for this. I am I'm a little bit on edge because I'm so in awe of my guests and the really incredible work that they're doing in the psychedelic realm. And I'll just introduce them, and we can dive right in. My guests today are Kevin and Haley, and they are the driving force behind DreamMind Labs. And so, welcome you two to the DMT Chronicles.
Thanks, Dr. Dream.
Thank you.
Now, I found you because somebody on social media had posted about an experience that they had with you. And they described it, I believe it was described as a 4 hour DMT experience. And I was like, whoa, I got to let me do a little research into this. And what I learned about was that it's available to have an experience of extended state DMT, which is, I guess, commonly referred to as DMTx.
Yeah, that's correct. Yep.
And so I reached out to you immediately upon seeing this post. And you and I have had a discussion since then, and I'm looking forward to coming to Colorado for the experience. But tell us a little bit about extended state DMT experiences, and maybe give us a little bit of your background to start with, Kevin. And as I guess we would have no trouble calling you an experienced psychonaut at this point, but none of us started that way. I'd love to hear the humble beginnings of your psychedelic journeys also before we go into where it's led you.
Yeah, loaded question, and yeah, taking me back. I guess for me personally, started out with cannabis in the teenage years, which led me to, being asked or offered, I guess, LSD pretty early on in high school, which I did not take. But that was kind of my first, offer of this psychedelic world. And it actually wasn't until I was in college in the late 90s that I had my first mushroom experience. And I probably had a whopping tiny little cap of a mushroom of a couple 100 milligram microdose or something on the beaches of Florida, but was profound enough of a shift of my consciousness that I was like, "Ooh, what have I been missing?" And all of my friends that were dosing LSD in high school and things, and I immediately went home and started growing mushrooms. And I was working in the marine laboratory at my university, so like fish tanks and little lights and everything was accessible to me. So I was growing mushrooms in the kitchen of my house on campus. And I mean, I ate mushrooms probably every day for an entire summer, just like really diving deep into exploring. And I was growing Hawaiians and Puerto Ricans and Amazonians back then, but playing around with different substrates between all the horse and cow farms in Ohio. And I was growing on straight straw for a while, but I was kind of known within my circle of friends of you could just come over to my house and pick mushrooms whenever you felt like it and eat them. So it's kind of like this open source community of just like come over to my house and I trusted everybody, pick mushrooms. I never charged anybody for anything. It was just like so abundant that it was just like they were drying or growing at all times and just come over and have fun. So I explored a lot with my friends back then. And that was kind of the start of it. And I would say around that same time, just being a huge fan of Tool and finding out that their art was Alex Gray, and then picking up the Spirit Molecule from Rick Strassman, DMT entered my life at that point. And I was going to school for undergraduate degree in biology and chemistry and was like, seems like I got the skills here. Seems like this extraction thing is pretty easy. But, back in the late 90s, early 2000s, man, probably DMT Nexus and the Shroomery was around. And that was about the most that, that we had at our fingertips to like use. There wasn't anyone to talk to me about. I think I brought up psychedelics in a chemistry laboratory once, and the graduate student just walked away like, I can't talk to you about this. I mean, just it wasn't talked about. They sure as hell weren't going to talk to me about LSD chemistry. So like, you had to figure this stuff out yourself. So I graduated from college 2002, moved to Salt Lake. Ended up kind of being a ski bum for a while, but decided, you know what? I bought some mimosa bark online, did an extraction, and had my first very underwhelming DMT experience. Walked down to the corner, found a meth pipe at a gas station, loaded up with these orange crystals that I had just precipitated out in my freezer and told my friends, come check on me in a half hour if I don't come back upstairs. And really all I remember after lighting that and the incredibly hot fumes hit my lips went numb, and that was about all that happened. No experience, no nothing. Got
Wow.
one inhale in, and that was about it. So very underwhelming. And like I said, there's no one to talk to. Like, how do you smoke this stuff? What am I doing? What am I supposed to expect? You've read the spirit molecule, you've watched the movies, you've read trip reports, and then you got that experience. And um, yeah, wow. So time and time again with friends trying to figure out how to smoke this molecule. And, back then I was also growing cannabis. So it was like we're loading on cannabis. We're trying to hit it out of bongs, like very rudimentary dab rigs back in the day, almost like hot knifing it, and finally had my first like experience, and it wasn't even breakthrough but like experience of wow. So I remember sitting around poker tables with my friends and passing the bowl around and everybody just kind of dozing off for a minute, just briefly touching that psychedelic realm with DMT, as well as all the other psychedelic explorations with mescaline and psilocybin mushrooms and whatnot. But finally, I got a rig that was working well and had my first breakthrough experience. And, the interesting thing around that is like giant open eye visuals. And I had this like 6 foot stained glass window hovering in front of me. And it honestly scared the shit out of me that first time. And I ran outside. It was just thinking that was going to bring me down, jumped in the shower, so yeah, it wasn't what you would think, but the gentle beginnings of experienced psychonaut with these things, with nobody to talk to about it, nobody else doing it, nobody even knowing what DMT was, at least in my circle of friends. And I mean, this is a long time from 90s into the mid 2000s, but at that point it was the very beginnings of hearing about extended state DMT. And that came from Andrew Gallimore's first paper that him and Rick Strassman came out with in Frontiers magazine, a research paper basically just showing that it's the hypothesis that it's possible, nothing more than that. Andrew dug into Rick Strassman's blood data from the 90s. So for those that aren't familiar, Rick Strassman was doing DMT studies of IV administration of DMT. And part of that study is he did 4 injections 30 minutes apart. And this was called his dose response study, just to see if there was any tolerance with DMT. So popped you had your experience 30 minutes later, popped you again 30 minutes later. Well, luckily he was taking blood samples from these patients during that and tracking how DMT was being metabolized. So Andrew Gallimore, come 2014, 2015 timeframe, was, I wonder if Rick has that blood data. And sure enough, he did. So Andrew is a computational neuroscientist, And DMT researcher, he and a pharmacologist at that, but threw it through what's called pharmacokinetics, and that's how a drug is distributed throughout our body, metabolized and excreted. And it looked like it could work just like an anesthetic drug, short acting, no toxicity, no tolerance, those aspects that's important in anesthetics. So, and picked up by Imperial College of London. They ran the first study and showed that the hypothesis was real, that it really could be done and safely in human beings. Um, we were granted a group I was working with at the time, kind of a pre-published study from Imperial showing us the pharmacokinetics and how they did their study. So yeah, we picked it up and ran with it, and basically just kind of the group that I was with at that time were kind of just like training to be able to do this breath work and cannabis and some mescaline experiences, ketamine, just like training of what is it going to be like and how to regulate ourselves in such a epic experience. Then here in Colorado in 2022, I believe, we passed the Natural Medicine Health Act, which essentially allowed us to, holy crap, we can use DMT legally here in Colorado. So we did our first experience of extended state, and I was the first participant to go. And I did a whole whopping 6 milligram IV infusion and just sustained that for 30 minutes. And the reason we did that is that we actually we did Imperial study exactly. They did 6 and 10 and 12 and 18 milligrams, I think. And so there was a small group of us that did those, and we were all to some level like underwhelmed, to like, believe it or not, of like, well, what's going on here? We could all do more. So then I went a second time that weekend and popped me with a full breakthrough like Rick Strassman, 0.35 milligram a kilogram, and had that gigantic breakthrough as we'd expect, and very profound in 30 minutes. So anyway, a long journey to where we're at. I mean, since I've had 6 DMTx experiences, us as a lab, we're approaching almost 50 sessions now. It's going amazing, and yeah.
So I need to ask the Rick Strassman study, was that extended state DMT experience, or was that something different? Not quite extended state. What help me understand?
Yeah, so Rick's study was just a single injection of DMT, so a single IV. So he worked with between zero point 0.3 and zero point 0.4 milligram a kilogram injections. So if you take your weight, find the kilogram, multiply it by zero point 0.4, that's how much those participants were injected with just one time. They went on their 15-minute ride.
And so what's the formula now in that you're all doing facilitating for others?
You want to go with
Well,
that?
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of room for individualization. This is target controlled infusion, meaning that we can highly individualize the experience. So, we pre-plan with somebody, talk to them. Weight's a consideration, but we're also finding that it's so highly subjective that that's not 100% what we base it off of. That's like a beginning stage. And so it varies, if we want to get somebody into a breakthrough state, then we will work towards that. What is it, 0.35 milligrams per kilogram level? And, otherwise we try to find a level that they're comfortable at, that they can self-regulate at and explore the space.
Yeah. So, I mean, to be like very clear, is that target controlled infusion is just that. We use a IV pump or an anesthesiologic pump that has the DMT loaded into a 50 mil syringe that's concentrated with a certain concentration of DMT. And so what the pharmacokinetic model is how much DMT do we need to infuse in you per minute to sustain a particular level of DMT experience. So we also give a single injection of DMT to bring you into the space, and then we hold you there. And then what Haley was describing is then we can adjust that level to fine tune your individual experience to where you're most comfortable with. We kind of call that cruising altitude. Once we find that for you, it's not crazy to think about going 4 or 5 hours in the state because you're just really comfortable. It's kind of like riding a peak, like psilocybin journey or something. I mean, much more, depth with DMT. However, like you're regulated within that space, and you're really comfortable. Like I'm good here. So that's an important aspect of this is the individuals like feedback to us that they're not too deep, they're not underwhelmed, they're right where they need to be. And then from there, we can pop you in with additional injections to give you like these waves of deeper experience and then even fine tune that from there. So yeah, no session looks the same and each individual is guided how they feel comfortable in the space.
Can you go too deep? And if you can, what is that like?
What is too deep? I mean, I think that's a really big question. I mean, there's certainly times when people have gone so deep that they feel like they're unregulated, a little bit overwhelmed, and they ask to come down. So, but that's so subjective. It's hard to define
Yeah.
what too deep would be.
Yeah, and we're conservative to an aspect where it's not like we're popping people, you know, I think Rick, during that initial studies in the 90s, hit one participant at like zero point 0.6 or zero point 0.7 milligram a
Mhm.
kilogram. And they were throwing up and just like, it was not good, So like, I think that was like individual 001, like how much do we need to inject somebody with? They didn't know, right? So it was just like pop them really hard and figure it out. So, I've had one experience just that I can express that where I felt that I got to a level that I was just unregulated. Um, and I asked to come down just because it was just like, yeah, it's hard to describe, but just I was unable to use my tools as an experienced psychonaut of like breathing and just letting completely go to be able to regulate in that high state. Now, however, there's an aspect of this is that's important is that I do feel that in these DMT realms is once you've broken through, there's a whole nother conversation to be had around this because I don't know if you can go too deep after the breakthrough. I've had multiple extra injections after being broke through, and all it does is kind of wobble the space more than the intensity get crazy. But when you're in these lower realms, it's almost like you need a certain amount of fuel to pop through the veil. Otherwise, you're stuck in this lower realm where it can just get crazy intense, but you've never actually broken through. And that's where I think we see some of the like too deep in this lower level where it's like too intense for people. It's kind of a hard thing to describe, but it's an interesting like observation that we've seen, working in this space.
Interesting. I shared before we started recording that just so happens last night I had a DMT experience, and it was I've done DMT hundreds of times, and last night was, and they're all fabulous experiences. Last night was over the top. And it's so fresh, I can't even really get to the point of describing it. But I'm not sure I could imagine being in that experience. I mean, I don't know how long I was there. Stephanie said at one point she realized that I wasn't here, like next to her. My consciousness had not had left the building, so to speak. But I'm not sure how long I could have handled that experience. I would have liked it to be maybe twice as long as whatever amount of time it was, which is hard for me to say. But when you start talking like an hour, 2 hours, you just said 4 hours, 5 hours. I'm like, wow, that would, I mean, I came back, I was crying, I was not able to really talk about it. It was so beautiful, so expansive to my spirit, literally to my soul. So I guess in a roundabout way, this leads to a question. And the question would be, how does, a very powerful inhalation experience, vaping or whatever, compare to breaking through through the use of the IV?
Yeah. IV definitely feels more smooth, and more clean. Smoking seems to be a lot more chaotic, like very profound, but it's very chaotic as far as quick, and you're in there and then you're kind of coming back. It's a hard one to describe, but when you break through and then you're there, it's like like I said, like where you're able to regulate in the space. So even in that like gigantic experience that you had, just like you said, like you probably would have loved it to go 2 times longer, 3 times longer. Well, it's like when you realize consciously that you actually can now stay there for 2, 3 times longer. It's like, and we can see this on like your blood pressure and heart rate. Everything calms down and you're able to just ride up there. The other aspect is after you've been there for, let's say, 15, 20 minutes, and we check in with you, is it's like a little bit of a voice of a grounding nature of then you realize, oh, like I can communicate in both worlds at one time. So it's like, oh, whoa, I just had this grounding voice of Haley and I in the room with you, right? Which can be wild, right? But gently just check in. Where are you at? You've been out for 15, 20 minutes. And, you can at that point realize that you have the agency to say, you know what, I'm good. I think I can stay here for longer. Or that was wild. Let's come back down and chit chat a little while. And then bringing you down to that kind of cruising altitude, or maybe you can grab a little drink, take a little snack, and then, you know what? I feel like I want to go touch that space again, and we can pop you back in. I don't know if that answers your question, but we just find that people they have the sustained ability to stay at these higher levels with the IV infusion that seems so crazy, but it's like a very smooth ride and they're able to really settle in at these high doses. Yeah.
I have a number of more questions, but before I get into all of that, we didn't really get into much of a background or anything on Haley. I want to just kind of open it. It's like, it's fine, that's fine. No, I just kind of want to open it up for you to share whatever you'd like to share, background, history, what drew you to all of this, where your fascination with it lies, anything you want to share with us, and then we'll go on.
Yeah, I think kind of like Kevin, I first encountered mushrooms a long time ago. I think mid 90s. I had my first couple of mushroom journeys. Absolutely no idea around dosage or what to expect, and ended up eating a more or less heroic dose the first 3 or 4 times. It was fascinating but overwhelming, and I didn't realize that you could actually just eat smaller doses and have a more like integrated experience. until, several years later. But also in the 90s, I grew up in New Mexico. And so I was aware of Rick Strassman doing his DMT studies. And I recall conversations sort of lamenting with friends that we were just a year too young to apply for those studies. And so always holding this fascination with DMT and psychedelics, I moved on in life and studied nursing and began a career doing that, but always, looking out for any opportunities around research, specifically because there wasn't therapy being done at the time, and just ways to incorporate more holistic care in general into my practice. And, eventually started taking mushrooms again on my own on my days off on long hikes, and just really have always enjoyed exploring that space. And so a couple of years ago, coming up to Colorado, met Kevin and more or less realized that he was doing the work that I've always been looking forward to doing. And so things just sort of synergistically came together in a beautiful way. And so here I am, not working in a professional capacity in any way. This is all strictly under the personal use in Colorado. But, I think with my background, it really is, it helps with, facilitating that experience for others.
That's excellent. You two certainly are like the fantastic duo. So I went back through your site. I obviously had been there before, before I reached out to have that conversation with you that we had. And I thought, and I was going through some of the things real quickly, and I saw something that I thought said testimonials. And I thought, oh, I'm definitely going to come back to that, but let me click on research and this and that. And then I went back to look for testimonials. I'm like, oh, that was me misreading testing, which is important and definitely deserves its own tab. But no testimonials on the site. So I want to ask, like, what do people say? You've had 50 people go through this process. Everyone's, as you've already stated, unique. It's very individualized and everything else. What are people saying? How are they describing it? What is the, like, give us some stories. I mean, I don't need, in depth or anything like that, but I'm fascinated, by all of this and 50 people. I'm also fascinated, and this can be like the second part of the question is, you've been doing this, Kevin, for 3+ years, and you've only done extended state 6 times. So that's a question you can answer either in whatever order you want to. Talk about testimonials or why only 6 times. It would seem to me that you would have done that more than 6 times. But so let's address that first.
The 6th time. Yeah. Well,
tell us.
Yeah. So those first couple of years, we were figuring out what we were doing, quite honestly, right? Make sure that it was safe. I mean, this was like some serious psychonauts, like willing to like try this out, right? So I guess those 6 were allowing other people to have the experience, right? I couldn't always be the one stepping up, always, although I was always the guinea pig. Everyone was looking around, who's going first, and every person's staring at me like, oh, all right, I gotta go again. Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I don't know. I mean, we have this accessibility. We can do it any time and any day, but I guess finding the time to do so in the busyness of working with other clients, digging into research and all those things. I don't really have a real answer for you, but those first 2 years, we're only getting together with a small group of people once a year. So I basically saved those experiences just in that group setting, like this communal kind of exploration of the state. The rest of the time was like studying and just, I mean, having a life more than anything, you know what I mean? Like family and all those things. So I just committed myself to doing that. Now that we're doing things independently, yeah, there is no reason for us to not be exploring ourselves a little bit deeper, which is an incredibly important part of this work. To be testing these experiences at different levels. What does it look like? But I also try not to interject my personal experiences on other people, right? Just because my experience at this dose level doesn't mean somebody else's are going to be there. So I guess the other side of that question is that I've had some deep experiences in those six experiences, and there is a level of maybe it's time for me to focus on bringing this experience in the best way possible to others than necessarily me having the experience for myself. And that's just as profound to watch other people just have enormous, beautiful experiences than me just constantly being hooked up. So that's one aspect of it. I'm probably forgetting all the other questions you asked.
Uh, I'm going to get to the other questions, but now I want to turn it to Haley. We don't know how many times you've had the extended state experience. Are you willing to share that?
Yeah, I've only done extended state once. I've smoked quite a few times now, and I've combined that with several other substances, like we were talking about before. I've also tried IM, intramuscular injection, several times. I've been playing around with that modality. It's a lot easier to do that. I mean, IV extended state, you're preparing the medicine in a syringe, and once it's prepared, you can't reuse it, and you have to start an IV, and it's like continuously monitoring. Um, so I think maybe that's one reason why we don't do DMTx all the time.
Yeah.
But my one experience was really interesting and inspiring. It was sub breakthrough level, but I think that's what I needed at that time, and I'm looking forward to going back and doing it again. Excited to share it with other people, and I think, like Kevin said, this is really a space where we're at personally right now, where we just want to focus on sharing this, making it accessible.
I love that. And I haven't even had the experience yet. And I'm in such tremendous gratitude for the work that you're doing. Um, so, 50 other people outside of the two of you, somewhere in that range. Talk to us about testimonials, their experiences. I asked you before, but when you and I had the talk last week or the week before about the length of time, I think I said, does everyone do 4 hours or 5 hours? And so give us an idea of what the range has been and how people describe their experiences, or
Well, our last client, we'll start with most recent first. He was in for 4 hours, and at one point it seemed like he was at a loss for words to describe the experience, and he said that was the most profound experience of my life. And I'm still waiting to hear him qualify that or dive deeper into that, because that was just really gratifying to hear, and amazed that he felt confident saying that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess to speak towards, because I've thought about putting
Mhm.
like a testimonial page on there.
Mhm.
I mean, people want to know who they're working with and what experiences have been like for sure. And we could probably just put anonymous, but that's an important aspect of this is not everybody wants to be out there with these experiences. We have some people
Mhm.
coming here that are very strictly like, um, no pictures, no mentions, no anything, keeping that anonymity is important for some of these people. So, yeah, I mean, maybe it's just like quotes from some people and just an anonymous type of thing. But that profoundness, uh, not to be vulgar, but so effing clean is one we get all the time. Um, and just loss of words, like ineffable comes up a lot.
A
Um,
lot of just wow,
yeah,
just these exclamations of astonishment within the space.
yeah.
And we had that one person recently who did mention feeling like they could die from astonishment.
Yeah, Death by Astonishment, Terrence McKenna, like that
Yeah.
that came out like flawlessly, not realizing of what it came from and where it met, and Andrew Galmore's new
Yeah.
book and all those things. But also just like, sometimes people will state like, am I still alive? Like during the
Yeah.
experience, am I still here? You know?
Am I here? I've heard that one a couple of times.
Yeah, but what people are saying is amazing. People who are out there on social media talking about the experience with this are all giving us amazing praise that the experience was amazing, that we're great facilitators. The DMTx was, yeah, really amazing and profound for them in many different ways. People are coming to us with their individual research ideas, and we're happy to facilitate that for them. That's one of the more popular ones that's out there about the DMT laser experiment. And, he's blasting it all over social media for us, which has been great. So,
So, no question about, I mean, I just have a really good feeling about the two of you as facilitators. I'm looking forward to booking my own experience here in the first part of 2026. Um, yeah, it's so you 50 people. I mean, no specifics about their background, but are they all like they must be somewhat to very experienced psychonauts to be able to want to take this next step? I don't imagine you should someone and nobody shows up as a beginner and says, I've just heard about DMT. I've never really tried it, but this sounds like a good way to have my first experience.
yeah.
Actually, yes, they're all experienced to some degree, but I have heard a couple of times people have come to us and they haven't done DMT yet.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. We have facilitated a couple sessions of novices and they handle it amazing.
yeah.
Yeah, we did one person who I think their whole psychedelic experience was a light dose of mushrooms once. That was it in their entire lives. And it was so profound to them, like in so many different ways that, yeah, they wanted to come back. So yeah, you would think so, right? And that, I
Wow.
think that just leads to that point of just like, even though it's the most seasoned psychonaut out there where you think this is wild, it doesn't have to be, right? With our control of the DMT flow into somebody's body, we can give them an amazingly beautiful, light DMT experience for a prolonged amount of time. And the medicine, one thing that the medicine keeps, like the DMT keeps telling us, is that it meets the person where they're at, you know, like what do they need in that time? And it seems like from the least experience to the most experience, it meets you right there. And that's been just like one of the big, like, wow, this medicine's amazing and what it's doing for people. And we feel pretty amazing about being able to offer it to people. Yeah. Um, just to kick back, just a side note is, you asked me about the six experiences and why only that. So believe it or not, if I remember right, there's only one other person on the planet that's had six experiences, and that's Carl Hayden Smith, the lead psychonaut of the Imperial College team. So as far as I know, him and I are the only two people on the earth that have had that two experience. So yeah, maybe I need to do seven, but I mean, it's not a,
It's not a competition, but
but I mean, we're literally talking about probably less, I mean, less people that have been in space that have had this experience in the world, So, we're just getting there, as far as getting people in this state. It's pretty niche and unique. And yeah, it's a small group of people on this planet that have experienced this. So pretty awesome to be working in this space.
All right. Well, that's really good. And I appreciate that because it really puts it into perspective because I figured there were other people around that had more experiences than that. Let me ask you, of the 50 people that have come in, has anyone come back for a second round?
Yeah.
So I guess to quantify that or put that clearly is like the 50 sessions that we've done. Yeah, there's probably six people that have gone twice. So there's like 12 to 15 experiences there, of people going a couple of times. Yeah.
And how much time in between the sessions?
Yeah, well, other than me, generally a year between sessions. I've done up to two sessions, like back to back, like next day. Yeah. We haven't done one that quick with a person yet, a client outside of like me. Um, I think that's something to like gently step into. Most people, like when you come out of the experience, are like, I want to go again. Like they're stoked, like ready to like, I'll be back tomorrow. And then we talk to them tomorrow and it's like, I think I need a minute, you know. So, I think once or twice a year is probably, good for most people that can, do that sort of thing. Yeah.
I've personally found DMT to be very interesting. It first entered my experience in 1994 when I was living in New York City. We had read about it and known about it, and I got a call late one night from a friend of mine, and he said, that thing that we've wanted to do that we haven't been able to find, I'm with it right now. And I'm like, where are you? I'll be right there. And after that experience, I had him take me over to his guy's place. And I bought everything that he had. It led me to the ethnobotany conference with Terrence McKenna and Jonathan Ott and Christian Ratch and Stacy Schaefer and all these like amazing people, Ralph Metzner in 94, 95. And I met someone there that was part of the Strassman study.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I went to New Mexico to visit this person and was then able to pick up some more. So I've had DMT in my possession since 1994. There have been 2 or 3 year stretches in there that I haven't touched it.
Yeah.
And then there's been times where like I'm in a phase right now or a cycle where once a week, every other week, something like that. And it's been fascinating. I always feel like I get exactly what I need to get out of it. I laugh because, a lot of times I go in with an intention, but that's sort of like that old thing, man plans, God laughs. And so I kind of feel like DMT is the same way at times, but I feel like it's probably good to have intentions before doing any of this. And it is something to be taken seriously. And for me with rituals surrounding it and everything like that, it has always created a little bit of anxiety. So let me ask you, Kevin, 6 times. Was there anxiety around each time before going into the experience?
I mean, yeah, of course.
Okay. I just, I mean, I'm not putting you on a pedestal as being superhuman, but I kind of feel like you're almost superhuman. But it's nice to know that you're as human as the rest of us.
Yeah, I mean it's gotten a little like better, but that I mean the first time as you could imagine, like holy crap, I got an IV in my arm and I'm about to get popped, So, that was the most anxiety provoking, but yeah, I would say if somebody doesn't have anxiety going into DMC, no matter how experienced you are, like maybe we need to talk because yeah, it's a big one. Yeah.
I in at the ethnobotany conference in Palenque, the others that I come into contact with when I'm experiencing DMT told me to go talk to Terrence. Um, and Christiane Ratch was with me. I was doing a DMT joint circle, 10 of us. I would sage and drum on everyone and then roll 5 DMT joints, and every other person would light one, and you'd light it, puff it, pass it, and it would just go around until inevitably people just started setting them down because they just couldn't do it anymore. And I was on some LSD also that evening, and Christiane Ratch turned into Buddha, which was really, he has a striking look to begin with, but he's incredibly beautiful as Buddha. And the whole thing. And then the others come in and they tell me, we want you to go talk to Terrence. And I'm pretty much like, fuck no, don't have me do this. I'm tripping and I just smoked 5 DMT joints and like
Right.
I'm a little bit out there. And they're like, and I've already received messages from them where they've asked me to do something, and it's panned out in the most beautiful ways in my life. And always in the beginning, I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. Like, telling me at a concert at Yankee Stadium, Pink Floyd show, where I not accidentally, anyway, I took a hit off a pipe that had been used for DMT. I just happened to have it with me. And then they're like, do you see that guy in front of you? You need to talk to him. And I'm like, what? Here it's the Pink Floyd's playing and everything. And anyway, ended up creating a years-long friendship with this person and going down to Peru with him and doing ayahuasca and all of this. So I've realized I can't say no to them. It doesn't happen every single time. Like I can count on 3 fingers the times that it has happened where they're like, here, we need you to do this. But they were very insistent about going and talking to Terrence. And so I was like, I knew they weren't going to let up. I mean, even after the experience is over, that's still there. And so I went and woke him up in his casita at this jungle compound that we were all staying at. And one of my questions for him, after I relayed the message that I was to relay to him, and Terrence thought I was nuts, which is like almost my psychedelic claim to fame, is like Terrence McKenna thought I was crazy, but one of the things that he said to me was, you're absolutely way off base and absolutely nuts for doing these DMT joint circles. It shouldn't be done that way. And I said, Terrence, that's really interesting, because here you are telling us to take a glass pipe with multiple screens and ash and whatever, and a torch, and be very careful and all this. And some of us have had a history with other substances doing it that way. It's a little sketchy. And I'm like, it seems to me comes off a little bit nuts also. And I said, just rhetorical question here, Terrence, who do you think told me to do it this way? And so that was that. But later on in the conversation, and I need to preface it that I was completely still high on LSD. And so this was a very emotional conversation I was having with Terrence. I said, how do you handle this? How do you handle having one foot in that realm, having all those experiences? And of course, he talks about the machine elves and, all of this, and then coming back to this reality. Like, how do you handle it? Because at the time, that was my biggest challenge because I was doing DMT, quite a bit because we had just gotten it. So I'm like in New York City, I'm like, well, I just got off the subway, surrounded by a bunch of people. I'm back in my place. Let's do some DMT and see what it's like, with that energetic around me. Or I just came back from clubbing all night. Let me try it now. And so I was in that world where I was doing it quite a bit. And the reality, kind of scenario kept coming up for me. And I just remember, and I wish I had recorded the conversation. I don't remember what his answer was. But that was like my big question for him once I got through everything else was, how do you keep yourself in both worlds comfortably? Or how do you, more to the point, how do you keep yourself in this, ordinary reality comfortably after having all those experiences? And, we all, if we've spent any time researching Terrence, we all know that he was a bit out there. That would be probably the understatement of this whole conversation. But it's interesting. So I guess 6 times with the extended state is probably about right to still keep you grounded and balanced in ordinary reality. I have to ask you, and yeah, so I'll just ask, how has it changed you?
Maybe I should ask other people that question. No,
well, there's only one other person that's done it 6 times, and I don't know his phone number. I'll get it from you later, but
yeah, like we have these conversations all the time around that. Just to always keep each other grounded. But yeah, I was joking with our last client because he said, I feel like I still got a toe, partially in that door. And I was like, man, I think I left a toe in there a long time ago. Like that door is just open all the time, right? So I think to some level it's changed me in the aspect in a very positive way though, that I'm able to kind of differentiate those two spaces. And more than anything, I enjoy, although sometimes it's hard, coming back here just because it's such a beautiful existence that we get to experience in this realm, right? In this material existence that we live in. So like I love going there, but I also have a very grounded viewpoint around that of just like um maybe that's something I get to touch after this life and, get to explore indefinitely. So it's just like I'm going to enjoy my time here. And I think to answer the question directly, that's my answer is just like, man, I get to eat food here. I get to do all the physical things that are fun. Because if this is it and we get to go there later, that will be just a transition to somewhere else. And I'm so thankful that I get to touch that existence and I can go there for the most part whenever I want if I choose to go, but that choice ultimately in our lives is going to be taken from us. So right now I have the choice to be here. So like, hell yeah, it's a pretty awesome place. So yeah.
Love it. Good answer. And thanks for letting me put you on the spot like that.
Yeah. Totally.
In the hundreds of times that I've experienced DMT, I come back with even more of an appreciation for this reality. I come back feeling more empowered, feeling more in touch with my ability to navigate this experience. I'm working on a workshop presentation right now called The Sacred Trinity: Psychedelics, the Quantum Field, and the Art of Manifesting. Cool. And that to me kind of sums up, what my experiences are around it is, I come back as a more powerful creator self in this reality. Like there's, oh, don't tell me that I can't manifest that, or don't tell me that's impossible because I've already been in the realms of everything and anything is possible. And so it's always been like a beautiful thing to come back. And I tried to explain before we started the recording my experience last night, and I'm still not, able to put it all into words. But the one phrase that I can share that feels like the closest thing to emotionally describe how last night was for me was that I was held by God.
Right.
And that's not, I haven't had other experiences in all my experiences where I've said, oh yeah, that feeling of being held by God last night was completely different. And so that was one of the things. I came across something recently. I was reminded back in 1995, I found a book. Owned it, bought it, and it's called The Essential Psychedelic Guide by D.M. Turner. Initials DMT. Obviously, that's not his real name. And so it just arrived yesterday. I found it on a used bookstore online. And this book, I mean, Terence McKenna's materials and others, certainly completely opened me up. But this book really appealed to the true psychonaut in me, because it wasn't just about DMT, and it was LSD, psilocybin, mescaline, ecstasy, 2CB, one of my favorites, and ketamine, and then he talks about multiple combinations. And, he'll go in and he'll say, well, so I did this amount of ketamine first, and then I did this amount of mescaline, and I had already taken this amount of LSD, and then I did the DMT. I mean, and it was just, I've only flipped through it, and I haven't gone back to read it. It is the book that he has. I just saw it just now. There's a chapter called DMT Water Spirit, A Magical Link. And it helped me decide to have an experience in my clawfoot tub in New York City. I thought, oh, it's water, magical water. Oh yeah, let's try this. I want to try this, and had an incredible experience I'll never forget. One of the things that happened in that experience, interestingly enough, the tub was long, and I'm 6'1", but the tub was long enough that I could have slipped down into the water. I hadn't really thought about it before I went into the experience, but as soon as I entered the experience, I felt what felt like two metal rods going into my head. And while I'm having this wild, crazy DMT experience, I was like, you guys think of everything, don't you? You're making sure I don't slip into the water. And it was like, there was no question that there was it. And I say metal, but who knows, but it felt like metal holding my head out of the tub. And I was just like, oh, you guys, you're on it, aren't you? So it's, I ever since going to the website and then our conversation, Kevin, I've been not obsessed, but certainly thinking about what my experience may be, having had such depth and wide breadth of experiences with this truly amazing medicine. And this is it's exciting for me. And so at some point next year, we'll be doing maybe another conversation with you two, talking about my experience and everything there, as I'm looking forward to coming to Colorado. But this whole conversation has been really meaningful for me, and I appreciate you stepping up and being willing to share and to just put it out there. I mean, this is what the DMT Chronicles for me is all about. It's I just want people to understand. I went a lot of years without telling, everybody that I was involved with DMT. It was just one of those things. And I never really talked about doing any of the other medicines, also. And I think we're at a really amazing time for us all now, where it's safe to come out of that psychedelic closet, in a broad sense. When I first went to created the Facebook group for the DMT Chronicles, I thought I'm going to go through my list of 4,600 friends, and I'm just going to handpick the ones that I want to invite.
Right.
And then the next day I said to my wife, I said, you won't believe what I did. She's like, what'd you do now? And I said, I invited every single one of my 4,600 friends on Facebook to join me in the DMT Chronicles. And I realized that, I don't know, and I haven't taken a survey yet, but I realized a majority of the 235 people in this group have probably never done DMT, but they've heard about it and they're interested in it, and probably think that it would be interesting to hear Dr. Dream's take on the experience and everything like that. And I thought, my wife said, I can't believe you put it out to everyone. And I said, it's time. And I've always said, if you've got a problem with me, it starts with the purple beard. I'm like, hey, if the purple beard bothers you, cut bait and run now, because it just gets more interesting along those lines once you get past the purple beard, So, but I want to thank you both for sharing your insights and sharing your time with us. People can find out more at DreamMindLabs.com, and they can get more information, the details, how it all works. You do an interview before, or not an interview really, you have a conversation, and then there's because I'm not quite, we've had the conversation, but then I guess there's a little deeper interview, maybe with some medical things and other questions. And then afterwards, you also provide an opportunity for some interaction that helps also. You want to just share a little bit about that?
Yeah, you want to talk about that? Integration.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. After, they come out to Colorado, a lot of people are coming from outside of the state. And so we first invite them to the ceremonial space and let them get comfortable in the space and talk about, planning their journey, what to expect, and, ask, what do you want to incorporate? Are there spiritual practices or experiments or ideas that you want to touch on during the experience? And then usually the next day they come out, and takes a little while to prepare. We get them set up and going, and check in with them all along the way. No rush, no time frame usually. And then afterwards, we like to integrate the experience a little bit. There's always a bit of talk immediately afterwards, but often we're finding that people are kind of at a loss for words, unable to fully describe their experience. So yeah, we touch base the next day and then a couple days later, and just sort of see how things are going, how they're feeling. Are they able to integrate? What have they done since the experience? Just making sure that they're creating that time and space to just allow themselves to sort of wrap their mind around the experience.
Yeah. And then they're open to reach out anytime after this experience, right? So we touch base, with them, and just check in periodically over the next several weeks, and just let them know that we're here. They need anything, anything comes up. We do like during that interview process as well as just like check like what kind of support system they have around them outside of us, because that's really important.
Really important.
Yeah. So.
And a lot of people, even though this is not therapeutic in any sense here, purely personal exploration, there are people coming with a variety of life experiences. So checking in around their support system and their plan for integration afterwards is really key to an overall successful experience, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I feel that you two, just anyone that ends up watching this will feel the same way I feel about you two, that you are more than capable of holding a very beautiful space for people. You come across as, very heart-centered and caring. And I have to say, if you had told me we'd be having this conversation online and putting it out publicly back when I first got involved in all this in 1994, I would have said, no, that's crazy talk. Yeah, that's not going to happen. And so I think it's incredible where everything has gone, and that this is, legal as personal use in the state of Colorado. It's what an amazing progressive law that is, and it shows some real foresight and expanding on what we should already have as personal freedoms and liberties and everything like that. And then it just makes sense that two such beautiful, heart-centered people would be drawn into being facilitators for this. And it's obvious that it's not about the money for you. It's about, the experience and sharing it and the expansion and everything that brings from a personal standpoint for people. I was excited already about the prospect of coming out there. And now I'm even more excited about it. And so I just, again, want to thank you so much. And deep gratitude and respect for who you are and what you're doing for all of us.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Really appreciate those kind words, and been an honor being on here. It's awesome. Thanks for, holding that space for people to come on here and talk about DMT. It's awesome. Yeah.
And if you know anyone that wants to, we're always looking for guests and different perspectives and everything like that. And so we're wide open. Feel free to pass the website, DMTchronicles.com, or the Facebook group, the DMT Chronicles, along to people. And love to hear from even people that have gone through the experience with you. So that would be awesome.
I'm going to join your Facebook group next.
Yeah.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to it. Good. Yeah. I'm looking for more. I thought it was going to be like really supercharged up with lots of interaction and everything else, and it's not. But that's why I think there's, and I mean this in the best possible way, a lot of lurkers, just kind of, feeling into it and watching what I post, and I post different studies and things like that. So love to have you both join and put informative stuff out there, things that are new that you're researching, hearing about, any studies that you think would be of value and things like that. And that would be fabulous. So thank you so much.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you.
Awesome.